When you think of famous arcades in the United States, perhaps you think of the Galloping Ghost Arcade in Brookfield, Illinois. Or maybe you think of the Strong Museum of Play in Rochester, New York. But have you considered the RetroCade of Aberdeen, South Dakota? I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and we're about to take a look at this fabulous location. If you grew up in the 1980s, this is arcades the way you remember them. From the moment you go inside the door of the RetroCade, everything is laid out row by row, side by side, pinball machines, arcade machines, and everything you would expect to see in the era. It is a feast for both the ears and the eyes to walk by so many vintage working machines and see them ready for play, accepting quarters just as they would have back in the day, with a convenient change machine nearby to turn your ones and fives into those oh so important quarters you need for pure arcade satisfaction. Familiar favorites like Crazy Climber and Frogger are nestled right next to more obscure titles like Ga Plus, an often forgotten member of the Galaga family, and you see more vintage machines next to it like Dig Dug and Mario Brothers and Donkey Kong. All the classics are here, along with some really unique hidden gems that you rarely ever see in retro arcades, like a fully working Baby Pac-Man arcade pinball hybrid table. And there are no shortage of pinball machines in this arcade, along with a vintage jukebox that works and plays old 7-inch records on demand. To keep all of this working is a labor of love, and I should introduce you to the man behind that labor. We're going to talk with Scott, and we're going to hear all about his adventures with the RetroCade of Aberdeen. This is Mr. MegaManFan, and I'm here at the coolest place in Aberdeen, South Dakota. And with me right here is Scott. Scott, say hello and introduce the arcade and introduce yourself.
Hello, Steve. Yes, thank you. This arcade is a Main Street arcade, so I kind of wanted to keep a vintage feel to it. Specialize in 1980s and 1990s games. I try to keep them all original. This project, I should say, this passion started in probably about the year 2000 when I was working in Omaha, Nebraska. It was, it was the millennium and fireworks were going off. I was the service tech on call. And I remember coming back from a call, it was around midnight. Fireworks going off throughout the city, beautiful sight. I got back to the warehouse to put away my service van, and I got to looking at what we had in the warehouse, and there was just rows and rows of these beautiful vintage games, all unused, all just waiting for something to happen. I'd always been an avid collector myself, and when I saw those games, it just come to me that I wanted to recreate a vintage arcade. So
obviously you had been playing them your whole life. You'd grown up playing them in the arcades.
I grew up in arcades, yeah. The bowling alleys is where you'd used to find them a lot. Actually, any C-store, there were little game rooms in there. There was, wow.
I used to be able to find them at grocery stores.
I was going to say, yeah,
the
restaurants, they were everywhere.
First arcade game I ever played was, I don't know if you had Bonanza here. We had a Bonanza restaurant.
Okay, yes.
And they had a sit-down Space Invaders cocktail cabinet. That was the first arcade game I ever played as a kid, was Space Invaders. That's how old I am, folks. I'm dating myself here.
I don't feel bad. I love Space Invaders. That was one of my first as well. So it's just of course, I'll take that back. I did have a console game at home on my old Quasar television before that, and it was a Telstar Games series. It was Pong. It was an early version of Pong, so I guess that's my official start.
Yeah, well, my dad had one of those home Pong ones. I don't know if it was a Sears or a knockoff, but you pretty much couldn't not have a Pong in the 70s.
Yes. In fact, I think they started building them into the televisions there later on. I think Magnavox had a gaming television.
Yeah, and Magnavox for a while had consoles as well. They had the Odyssey, the original home console, and then the Odyssey too. So,
right.
Yeah, they were pioneers of that, even though they don't much get the credit for it. Atari got all the glory, but Magnavox was the first.
Well, somebody had to do it, so I'm glad.
So once you got the bug and decided you wanted to open your own arcade, Did you know at the time it was going to be here in Aberdeen?
Weird story about the building too. I was sitting down with my future wife, and we were reading the Sunday paper, and I saw the picture of this very building. And I just looked at it, and I said, over at Roxy, I said, this is my building. So we went through and purchased this in 2005.
Now, was she from here, or?
Yes, she is a lifelong resident here. She's always used to me collecting these arcade games and storing them and moving them around, and we both thought it may be a good idea to recreate something, do something we could share. So that's what we did. A little bit, it took years because a project like this, every single game that I did purchase here was not working. So I did have to go through each one, try to get it, to recreate it, make it look just like it did when you would play it in an arcade.
Now, how difficult is it getting a non-working arcade game working? Is it simply a matter of replacing bad chips, or do you have to replace the monitor? How far do you have to go to get it going?
It will vary on the game, I find. I will actually look for a really nice cabinet first, something I can work with. And complete, hopefully not been sitting, I don't know, not been, how would you say it?
Not rusting in a barn
Yeah,
somewhere.
not rusting in a, right. If it was inside, climate controlled, I could work with those. And some of them, I could get by with just maybe rebuilding a power supply, maybe monitor kits. There's some of them that were quite easy, and I could bring those back to life. Others, I had to do, a complete rebuild from the ground up, and that would include cabinets, finding parts for them. I always find stuff original. Inside my games, I go with all the original boards, all the original power supplies. I like to keep them purist, authentic.
Like a car collector, you want to rebuild it with the parts that were for that car, not aftermarket.
Yes. So when you open one of my games here, you would see it would look like it should look back in, say, the 1980s, 1990s.
But that also has to be challenging because sourcing original parts gets harder over time.
Yes, and it has been noticed. Well, actually, since probably 2020-ish, parts have been really difficult.
The pandemic probably accelerated that.
It really probably did take it definitely figured in. But I've still been able to keep going and finding some good sources on the internet for parts, chips, passive components, just anything I need to make these look good. A lot of the monitors that you see, I get because there's been a lot of conversions made to games where they put LCD monitors in them and maybe a emulator board in them.
Right, not the authentic
play
CRT.
Play a multi-game in them.
Right.
So I would purchase the old CRTs and find some good ones.
Nice.
So I've got a stockpile. So
now, have you encountered arcade games that have like a kill in them, like a CPS machine that has like you pull out the capacitor and then it no longer works? Have you had to deal with that?
No, the era of games here that I've dealing with, that hasn't been a factor there. So I've been lucky there.
Yeah. So I know that some of those machines, that once they die, you can't resurrect them because they're just designed to fail.
Yes, yeah. They're actually memory that's stored, and once that's gone, you can't get it back. So I haven't run across that.
So you have a specific cutoff point beyond which you won't buy an arcade game?
I like to keep them before 2000. Originally, of course, it was 1983-ish, the golden era of the 80s games. But then I expanded it because a lot of the players now, they like the 90s too. They remember that. That's their arcade. They grew up playing the Street Fighter 2s on there, and the Revolution X's, all the...
And Terminator.
Terminators,
Yeah, I have vintage memories from high school of standing in front of an arcade with the machine shaking me.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of it. So it's I have the machines that hopefully bring back a memory for each person, you know, a special time, and that's hopefully what you get when you come to this place.
Now, what was the most challenging arcade cab that you had to repair to get back to working glory?
I would have to say I worked on a Tato Kicks game because that was one of my favorites growing up when I played a lot. Of course, I bought one that had been converted, and so the wiring harnesses, the boards, everything was missing. Even the monitor was placed in there in the wrong orientation. So that was probably locating parts for those two. They're very difficult. So that was my, that was my big challenge. I did enjoy it, and it's. I didn't put that one on the floor because I put so much work into it.
That one stayed at home in the personal collection, right?
But I might share that one later on. But
Which actually was going to be another question of mine is how do you decide when you've got so many cabs which ones you want to put on the floor and which ones you keep for yourself?
The ones I want to keep for myself are the ones that really brought back good memories for me. And Exidy's Venture, that was one that I always really, I don't know what, I fell in love with that game in the Odyssey arcade. And
my wife loves that game on ColecoVision.
Yes. And that's, I don't know, I can play it over and over and not get bored of it. So that's I guess how I figure I really enjoy a game at the house. Got a few others too that I wouldn't mind taking out of the collection here and putting them in home, but mostly black and white, by the way. I'm a very just an avid fan of the old black and whites.
Yeah, there's just something more fun about having it stripped down to the essence, like Space Invaders, Asteroids, Battle Tank, where it's just you and a black and white display, and your mind fills in the color that you don't see.
Yes. Super Breakout, one of my favorites. Once was like Pong, but this gunfight. I can go through a whole list of them. A lot of
Night Driver. That's another one.
Night Driver. Oh, I have one of those in the warehouse, and that's a pretty cherry cabinet. So I'm gonna try to bring that one back, and I'll probably even put that one on the floor for a while.
Nice.
That one should be enjoyed by all.
What's the worst condition you've seen on a cabinet?
Those are the ones that have been sitting out, probably, what'd you say, barns, maybe rodent damage. The bottoms are all rotted away.
Yeah, I've seen
chewed up. They get into the wiring. Those, I'm sorry to say, but I do turn some of those into parts. I've never brought back one that far gone. So
yeah, if it's molding, no thanks.
Yep. Yeah, because I some of those are impossible to get right again. So I like to keep things original. I know I could have a cabinet reconstructed and maybe work with it, but no. I want to peer. There we go.
Do you ever worry when you put something out on the floor about the wear and tear? Because I know gamers can be kind of hard on the sticks and the buttons.
They were designed for it. I mean, they were designed in the 80s, 90s for it, and they still hold up today. I'll keep an eye on things there. If somebody seems to be having difficulty with the game, maybe not able to play or frustrated with it, coin jam or something, we'll take care of it right away.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a difference between somebody who's invested in it because they love it and somebody who just buys the machines to make some money. Because you'll go to I don't want to knock too many places, so I won't name names, but I've been to places where there's a Pac-Man and the screen is blurry and the joystick won't move left, and it's like, did they just buy this and throw it in here just to milk money out of it, or did they actually appreciate it?
There was probably some good memory for them. They probably did appreciate it. Repair, to get those repaired, it's hard to find somebody that wants to go out and repair them. So they probably had good intentions and just
let it slip through their fingers because it was over their expertise. They weren't over their head.
Yeah. They have it in their collection, but probably would like it to look like it did back when it was brought out of production. But it's 40 plus years on a lot of these games, and they do need work.
Was repair something that you did even before arcade games?
I started in the 6th grade, believe it or not.
Wow.
Well, it was because one of our teachers, he had a passion for it then, and he decided to share his passion with, I guess you say, the class. So he kind of would teach us these. I learned how to solder. I got these little kits that they used to sell that we could assemble. I still have a few. When I look back at them, they're atrocious.
Like the Radio Shack ones that you could just buy off the shelf?
Yeah, some of those. Of course, Radio Shack, I was
I kind of lived in that store as a kid.
Battery Club member guy here, so yeah, I was there quite often. I really miss him too.
I was never very good at the soldering, but my dad would help me with it if I was trying to do projects. I had a Commodore 64, and there was a magazine that showed you could buy all the parts at Radio Shack for a breadboard and make a voice modulator for a Commodore 64.
Yes.
So we soldered the whole thing together ourselves, It was a fun project.
Yeah. Similar things nowadays that people are getting into with the Raspberry Pi and
yeah, it's pretty crazy what people can do with those things
still,
these days.
So there's still it's out there to fuel the passion for those who want to pursue it.
But mentioning Raspberry Pi also leads me to another question, because you mentioned how people have ripped out the insides of a cab and put a multi-arcade machine emulator in it. Now, I'm not saying we have to judge people for what they do or don't do, but would you rather machines be kept authentic, or do you understand when somebody converts it?
You know, when they're in your home, space is limited, so I actually understand it for putting it in your home to have to be able to play all the games.
Yeah, if you only have one arcade cab, maybe you have to do what you have to do.
Yes. On this floor, I want to keep it just like it was in an arcade. One game, one cabinet, and I think people enjoy it.
What would you say gets the most attention when people first walk in? They're like, oh my God, I can't believe that.
Yeah, like all these games are working and it keeps going further back here. Yeah, no, they...
I'll admit, for me, it was Baby Pac-Man. When I saw you had a working Baby Pac-Man, I freaked out a little bit.
Okay, yes, and people, I think, do come in. They might be looking for a favorite that they remember there and finally find it, but you'll have to go through several games before you maybe find your favorite. And I like to mix not only the popular games, you got your top 10 that we've played probably and that they use nowadays, but I also put some of the lesser known titles on the floor too. Yeah. That's how an arcade was.
Like, okay, another one that freaked me out when I came in the first time was Cosmic Cruiser, and it wasn't working, and I was like, oh my God, he even has one, whether it's working or not. That just blew me away to see a Cosmic Cruiser in here.
Believe it or not, I also have the Wacko game that is part of that series.
Nice.
Yes. So, that's going to be a nice pairing that I plan for the future. So.
Has there ever been one that broke your heart, that you saw it and bought it and just couldn't get it working no matter what you did?
There's been a few actually, Steve. There's been a few. Actually, in any time I see a cabinet that's been converted, maybe way back in the early 80s, I just, part of me feels, I can't save them all. I'd like to resurrect almost everything, but my worst one was a sit-down spy hunter that I found in a basement. It was actually an old vendor's basement, and it was the glasses were broke on it. It was in pieces. Water damage. It's one that
the board was ruined. It was beyond
stuff
saving.
Was just it was the cabinet. When the cabinet gets to that point where it's beyond reconstruction. Boards, I could probably find boards for it and monitors and everything else. But
and if there's not too much corrosion, you can probably repair traces in some cases.
Yes, correct. Yeah, and I'll try to save everything I can to keep them as original as they were. That was my biggest heartbreak.
Which brings me to a tangent, because I didn't know that you and Roxy knew my friend Phil. And when I saw the Baby Pac-Man, I thought maybe you had bought his. But apparently you both had one.
Yes. You don't really see those that often. And the fact that we both had it and know each other and connected with it, that was a lot of fun.
Did you just find somebody online that said, hey, do you know a Baby Pac-Man? Do you know anything about it? And is that how you got in touch with him? Or?
That's pretty much it. You see another one, it's like, I've been wanting one of these. And it's yours is working, and let's work on one together here.
And from what Phil was telling me about his, it's one of the hardest ones to repair because there are a lot of fail points inside of it.
Well, there's always the old saying where there's pinball players and video game players, and never the twain shall meet. Well, guess what? They met at Baby Pac-Man.
And that just created a whole bunch of headaches.
So it's actually part of Bally's pinball division. So you've got pinball boards in there, and then you've got a big video game board there. So and to get them to interface back like they did in 1983,
And maintaining pinball machines is its own challenge with keeping the flippers working and the springs moving.
Flippers mostly, yeah. Pinball machines vibrate themselves to pieces. The wires will break. The flippers break. That's the most common repair on the floor here, is to rebuild the flippers, and that's usually every couple of seasons. The aftermarket parts, I find a lot of good ones, but they don't seem to make the flipper links like they once were. They seem to wear a lot faster than what I remember.
Yeah, I'm sure that they're not built like they used to be, like a lot of things today.
Yes, right.
Well, before we wrap it up, Scott, do you want to throw out any additional teasers for games that are coming in the future that people can look forward to?
Teasers? Oh, yes. I've got a stock of some Exities here that I think I'm going to bring out. I've got a Mousetrap. I've got Dragon's Lair original, and I'm not going to put the Dexter unit in there. By the way, I love that Dexter unit, but I'm going to use the layers as a player.
Yeah, the mini golf place I used to go to in high school had a Dragon Slayer that had been converted to a Space Ace. So
okay.
Yeah, and one of the things that I actually played it a lot was because it like gave you 3 credits on 1 quarter. So I was like, I'm in. I don't care how many times I die. I'm going to keep going.
Yes. Oh wow. Yeah. And I've got some others there. So not too many teasers there, but yeah. Dragon's Lair. Mousetrap, and I got some other XDs that you don't see too often. So I like XD games. I wouldn't say they're hard to emulate. You don't see those on the emulator. More so now, but they don't work quite as perfect as the arcade boards. Not that I found yet.
I guess one last question that I just thought of now. We talked about hard to find games. Have you ever come across something like one of a kind, like a Marble Madness 2 that was only put out for a demo and not actually meant to be for the public?
Seen a few pinball machines like that, but the arcade games very. I haven't been able to see a lot of that. I wish I could.
Well, that's what things like Midwest Gaming Classic and Video Game Expo and
yes, I
Game On.
Take that back. I did see a Computer Space. Nether's Computer Space was just at the ZapCon this year in Mesa, Arizona, and that was really nice.
Very first convention I went to was Classic Gaming in Las Vegas, and they had a Computer Space there.
Oh,
so
yes.
I was thrilled. And a lot of people were just walking by it and didn't know what it was. I'm like, this is the original. Yeah. This is where it started.
Yeah, try it once, please. It's on free play. You'll never see this again.
Right. If I had room for more than one cabin, I only have a double dragon in my basement, but if I had room for one more, I'd put a Computer Space right next to it.
Oh, nice. Mm-hmm. I love the cabinet on that too. I didn't know there was how many colors of cabinets there were, but
at least like a half dozen.
It seems like it, doesn't it?
I've seen lots of different fiberglass for that.
Mm-hmm. So that's a fun one. I'm sure difficult to move. Like a lot of these cabinets, just
pretty heavy
due to their age and delicate and stuff is aging. So I'm so glad to see those at conventions like that.
Well, Scott, I want to say on behalf of myself and gamers everywhere, thank you for keeping the retro vintage arcade gaming alive. It's a pleasure to see machines that work and work right, and it's so much fun to just pay a quarter and play just like we did back in the days when we were kids.
Yes, original games, original pricing, that's the way it should be.
Scott, thank you so much. I appreciate the time today.